time yet.
Yeah, but it's live. Guys, we're just setting up here and we'll get into the content in a minute or two. We sent out a message earlier, a text message, but we didn't realise that the text message system would take 2 hours to reach everyone, so there's going to be some people who come in a little bit late, but the whole thing's recorded, so it shouldn't make too much difference. Look, I think this is, I guess you could say, a bit of an emergency meeting on Facebook. New to us, Gandy, come around here, guys. I'm with Rodney Wyse, who's our federal president, but we've got Mark Gantz, our trustee, and Ganty is going to sit off at the side because we can't fit all our big heads into the video. He's going to sit off to the side and watch messages as they come in, and also ask us some questions that have been posted yesterday. We're getting quite a few messages through from people after the text message saying, hey, I don't do Facebook, you know, this is unfair, why don't you make your communications better? Well, we think things like Facebook are making our communications better, and there was a time where the ALAEA started sending emails out, and we were getting snail mail letters from members saying, oh, you've got to improve your communications, we don't have email. Well, as this is going to be recorded, after it's been done, we'll probably try and work out how we can email a recording of this to our members. As I understand it, people can ask questions in the comments section below. No audio from Kev White. Can anyone else hear what we're saying? Might have to turn volume up. And we will try and sort that problem out. No sound again. We did test the sound beforehand, guys.
Maybe make sure your phone's not on mute, Kev.
Mike Oxley says he has sound, so some others have sound. We did test the sound beforehand, guys, so it should be working. And thanks, Mumbles, you said the sound's great here, so maybe I won't have to lean so close. Alrighty, so obviously we've got a bit of a problem in the industry with coronavirus. The idea of doing this came actually out of the Flight Attendants Union, who did a little Facebook Live session yesterday, so that's why we thought of doing it, and their session went really well. But I think if we can just have an update for you guys firstly before we can get into the questions that you'll ask about where we're at with the various airlines and what they've been telling us. So I'll pass over to Rod and he'll go through as much of this as he can.
This afternoon we're going to meet with senior Qantas Group management. That includes Jetstar and QantasLink. They've told us that there's going to be some leave burning type programs. We don't know what that looks like yet. Obviously the last resort will be to force people to leave without pay. I think we've got a fair bit of slack in our group with annual leave and long service leave and RDOs. Obviously, it's also a good opportunity for them to work on their planes and get them in good condition to come back to the market once all this blows over. We'll be working with them, with the Qantas management group, to work out best ways to equip these leave programs and to do so as equitably as possible. I understand there is a bit of animosity there from previous leave burn programs that some people viewed as unfair, but we've committed to working with the management group to try and make it as fair for all. And obviously, the biggest thing that we're going to try and avoid is anyone losing their jobs, and that's obviously across all of our memberships. So we'll be working with the managers to try and stop all that.
So when's your meeting with Qantas?
So we're meeting with them this afternoon at 5.
And that's not just Qantas, is it?
Initially, it's the first meetings with the Qantas, the QF group, and then we're meeting with the Jetstar QantasLink management team.
So it's going to cover all sections, maybe not network.
No.
Which the guys out west are going to be in a bit of a different position than the east as this thing develops. The next one on our list, mate, is Virgin, and I've been talking with our reps the last couple of days, and I had a call this morning from Joe van der Heuvel, who is the engineering manager at Virgin, and if I could maybe share with you how I thought he felt. He sounded really rattled and didn't know where this was all going to lead. With that, and bear in mind, we're just on the back of the announcement that Virgin are going to ground all of their international flights and 50% of their domestic flights. He said that there's no immediate plans to change any of the maintenance levels at Virgin. They're going to look at bringing forward programs such as mods and doing engine changes that may not have been necessary, but may assist them to get back in the air as soon as the traffic picks up again. But I thought it best that probably I leave Job to his own thoughts and getting back to his own management team until they work out exactly what they need to do. And I said I'd probably speak to him in a couple of days. So, mate, we had a report from Rex this morning.
Steve Ray and our solicitor Sean's been talking to the Rex management group. Again, they're going to be looking at leave burn programs, and again they're looking at also trying to get as much work acquitted in this time as possible. It's much the same across all groups, it would seem.
Yeah, well, there's one group of our membership that are going to struggle a bit more, and I had a call or a message the other day from one of our members from Heston who subcontract to a lot of the international carriers who are pulling out of Australia. I think our immediate membership group that are going to need assistance and support is probably going to be those who work as some subcontractors, and that may affect those who work on Jetstar aircraft as well. But that's probably the area where we're going to have our first impact. And then we've got a lot of members in GA as well, mate. The GA guys, a lot of them are self-employed and just work on aircraft and get paid on an hourly rate for what they do. They're self-employed or work in companies of 2 or 3. We don't know how this is going to affect GA yet. I don't think the virus is spreading out into the country areas as it is in the cities. So I think dealing with a paycheck that is not the same from week to week is not too uncommon for GA. Let's just hope that their work hangs in there. Right, Andy, we've got some questions that were posted yesterday and we'll try and answer them as best we can.
Yeah, the first question is from one of our Jetstar members. He says, Jetstar has suggested employees use their vacation time. However, a more fair option is everyone reduce work hours per week to suit company demand. And in all honesty, dropping a day a block for every 2 blocks will not impact take-home pay at all that much, as people might just drop down to the next tax bracket.
All right, Jetstar. So Jetstar got a new EBA that came in last year. We understand how it works there industrially. The question's probably firstly going to be how much maintenance will they have as the traffic drops off? Jetstar are going to be hit substantially, probably more than Qantas with their airline traffic. I would imagine that at Jetstar there's probably going to be some maintenance that'll sort of carry over for a few weeks, even with the fleet grounded. Even as they park aircraft, there's mandatory things that they have to do. The next step, if they find themselves with too much manpower, would be to start looking at things such as paid leave. So we're going to talk about this in relation to all airlines. Paid leave would come first, and how that's split and allocated would be a matter for further discussion. And people talk about it being equitable. Everyone's idea of equity is different. Some say that those with the most leave should take theirs first. Others say that they should take an equal amount each. But what we're trying to prevent is people being forced on unpaid leave. So we'll talk about that further when some of the other questions are discussed.
Okay, the next question is a general question. If you're required to self-isolate and unable to work, what type of leave will cover it? Sick leave, annual leave, leave without pay, or would it be workers' comp if it was incurred at work?
Do you want to take a letter? You want me to?
Oh, you go.
All right, just keep the question handy, Mark, because I might have to refer back to the question itself. This is the question that's on everyone's lips, but there's 3 particular areas of leave, doesn't matter where you work, that are clear. If you get coronavirus, you can take sick leave. If you don't want to go to work, you've got to sort your own leave out. If you are sent home by your employer, they must continue to pay you. The big question on everyone's lips is, if you are confined by a government restriction, i.e. you can't leave your home or you have to self-isolate, who pays for it? And right now, there's no clear guidelines or answer to that question, and the ACTU and others are trying to press for paid leave for everyone who is quarantined. But as it stands today, that fourth category of people who are quarantined but not necessarily sick, there's no clear answer.
Okay. Just before we keep going through there, I'm getting a few messages here that people can't hear what we're saying. Just make sure your phone's, the sound's switched on your phone, guys. Most people seem to get it, but some of you aren't.
Maybe those people who can't hear wouldn't have heard that message. If someone could maybe type that in and repeat it for those who can't hear, and if you just let them know that they need to turn their sound on because you're getting it okay.
So the next question was for Qantas Group people. How safe is our bonus? It's still owing and sitting in Qantas bank accounts.
You go.
No, you can answer that one, mate. The bonus, where is it?
Well, it's still sitting in their bank accounts. We met with Qantas. This is going to be a bit around Qantas, guys, considering Qantas is half the membership group. So, look, for all those Qantas employees, we met with Qantas management, part of the ALAEA negotiating team, met with them on Monday. Again, they didn't have an offer for us, but we put forward the 3% vanilla deal. We're still waiting to hear back on that, whether it's been approved or not. Involved in that would be the bonus. So let's hope that the money's still there, but I'm sure it is.
Alrighty, mate, what's next?
Okay, next question. What is deemed as excessive leave, i.e. long service leave? The AMEs are saying it's in their EA that anything over 90 days they can be required to take. Do we have a similar clause in any of our EAs or not?
Look, nearly every enterprise agreement that our members work under refers back to state legislation on long service leave. And the question isn't really, as it's been put there, as what is deemed excessive. The question, probably more important, is when can a company force you to take leave? That is, direct you to take long service leave. And it differs from state to state. For example, in New South Wales, they can direct you, but they've got to give you, I think, 1 month's notice or 2 months' notice. So the answer to that is within all of the state legislation.
Okay, there's a similar question. Can they force you to take leave without pay?
No. At this stage, certainly, whilst there are leave balances, paid leave balances and options for them, they can't. Ultimately, will they be able to force people to take leave without pay? Maybe, but they have to enact certain emergency provisions of the Fair Work Act that have some pretty steep hurdles for them to overcome. I had, well, actually, there's one of the other questions going to get to redundancy, and this is about will people lose their jobs as a result of this. But at the moment, can they force you to take leave without pay? No. But there's going to be some sections of our membership where people are concerned about the viability of their company where the suggestion may come up.
Okay, this one's a general question which probably impacts all workplaces. How would a leave burn plan be implemented?
Leave burn plan? How would a leave burn plan be implemented? Well, again, that depends on where you work, what your EBA says, what your state legislation is. We had leave burn at Qantas a couple of years ago. And there was this question about what is fair and reasonable. Does everyone take 4 weeks? Or does a guy with 9 months stored take his 9 months until we're all down to 4 weeks leave and then you start exhausting that? Gandy, you told a good story the other day about guys talking about this in your workplace and about what's fair and what's not. Do you want to repeat that?
Well, I think the fairest way to apply it is those with the highest leave balance. See you next year.
And as you were discussing this in the workplace with the members, a guy with a very large balance was saying, "This is unfair. I've saved all of that leave. Why should I have to use leave to a greater extent than someone who has, say, 4 weeks leave? Why should someone with 9 months leave be forced or have to take leave more so than someone with a much smaller leave balance?"
Well, people that accumulate excessive amounts of leave, they're taking jobs off people. You can actually falsify your available manpower by people not taking leave. So it's an important part of people's well-being, and it's an important part of the business. And those people that have accumulated excessive balances should be the first ones to go.
Yes, and that's how I agree, and that the association would view it that those with very large leave balances would probably be the ones that would or should take leave before those with not much leave, and that's because leave is not there to save for your retirement fund. Leave is there to take leave throughout your career and supply work for others. And just as I'm reading the messages come in, there's one problem I'm not going to be able to address. I'm not going to be able to have the sound come out of my lips and have my lips move a second or two later and try and get it in sync. So if it's not in sync, there's not going to be too much we can do about it. Alrighty, what else have we got?
Okay, this one's from one of our regional members. He said, "How do regional airlines factor in the government support modelling? As their budgets, I would assume, are less deep than, say, QF, and their yearly revenues would most likely be equal to Joyce's annual salary." So you can answer that first part.
Did you watch the government package come out last night for aviation?
Yep.
There wasn't much detail in it, was there?
No.
But the first thing that surprised me with the government package, I thought, they're going to announce a package for aviation. I thought they were going to announce $24 million they're going to give. But they didn't. It was substantially higher. I think it was $715 million. But from what we've picked up so far, and the details aren't precise yet, because I think the government is still talking about it, is that the money is going to be allocated to airlines to save on airport fees, taxes, and associated government costs in relation to running an airline. So if you have a smaller airline, it will be allocated proportional to that based on, I don't know whether it's landings or parking fees or income tax for the airline. So a larger portion of that will go to the largest airline, which is obviously Qantas, but the same methods would apply to regional airlines, who would take their proportionate share of what's been determined by the government. But I don't think the government even know the precise details of that.
Okay, that was a part of the next question. Who takes priority in the division of government assistance, and what written contracts assurances do companies provide ensuring employees remain employed to gain government assistance? So what he's saying there is, do you need to be employed and have a job to get that assistance?
Well, I think the question is more about, is the money that that is allocated by the government going to go to making sure that people remain employed? And I didn't hear anything from the government announcement that said that there would be a guarantee of employment or that the money would be used to prop up wages. It was all about airline taxes and fees. So I don't think any of that is to guarantee employment, but we're probably in a fortunate position being people who work on aircraft when they aren't flying. So those people who fly with the aircraft, i.e. pilots and flight attendants, are obviously going to feel the impact of this more than we will. But we don't know how long this virus is going to last. Eventually our work will run out as well, but no, there's no government guarantees in relation to employee job security.
Has there been any government assistance offered to GA, the GA sector?
I did hear the government talk about GA as well, and they wrapped that up in the discussion about the wider tax savings that are announced through their package. $715 million is a lot of money. I mean, Qantas's profit in any given year is about $1 billion, so it's not insubstantial, and with that money flowing out to other parts of the industry, I think GA will be somewhat covered by this as the same proportion as any other airline.
Okay, here's one on the tips of everyone's lips. Have any of our members been confirmed with COVID-19?
We don't know of any, but please feel free, guys. If that is you, happy to hear from you and try and help you out where we can.
Okay, follow up to that one. Has there been any communication from the federal government regarding people infected with COVID-19?
Not with us particularly, if that's the question.
No, we haven't heard from the government. I think they're pretty busy at the moment.
Okay, next question. I'm asking the question to get clarification from the ALAEA. As it was reported on a news service, Qantas is asking all staff to take 2 months unpaid leave.
So we're just trying to read questions as they come up as well. So did you want to talk to this one first, Steve?
Yeah, and we'll get back to that because it probably ties in with what Alex has just typed up there as well. And the question being, can Qantas start sacking people once work runs out and people have exhausted all leave? We don't believe they can. Of course, if work runs out for the next 10 years, they may not be able to sack you, but they may be able to give you compulsory redundancy. But what we're hearing is that the airlines, and this just doesn't go for Qantas, this goes for the Virgin Group and others as well, they don't want to give voluntary redundancy at the moment because they have to come up with the funds to sponsor the voluntary redundancy packages. If they sack you or want to get rid of you, it has to come with a package because that's enshrined in your EBA. So they haven't got the funds to do this now. So, Alex, I don't think that's really on the cards at all.
And just to reiterate, this question's aligned. I'm asking the question to get clarification from the ALA, as it was reported on the news service that Qantas is asking all staff to take 2 months unpaid leave. Now, look, we do know that the flight attendants and the pilots have already had a lot of their leave allocations given to them. Obviously, they're in a different situation to us. As I said before, when we're talking to Qantas management, we'll be trying to offer as much work as we can to equip. We know there's a pretty big backlog of work there at the moment, and same can be said for the other airlines. So I think we're a fair bit away from the forced leave programs of unpaid leave.
So we just got a question from Jason. What was the general feeling conveyed by management at yesterday's meeting with regards to signing an EBA? And for those not familiar with the question, it's about an EBA meeting with Qantas yesterday, and there was also a meeting with Virgin yesterday that got cancelled. So there's a lot of confusion in at management levels. So quite frankly, I don't think they know what they're doing. But if I could just share with you exactly what happened at the meeting. We were due to meet with Qantas yesterday at 10. What time was it they rocked up? 12:15?
12:15, yeah.
They were 2.5 hours late, and they said they got half an hour to meet with us. They've got all these crisis meetings on at the moment, and they haven't really even got time to look or consider EBA outcome. But we relayed to them at the meeting that you want to wrap up this EBA because then you'll probably find that our membership are more cooperative when it comes to measures that you want to put in place.
Yeah, just to reiterate, that meeting was on Monday, just gone. And look, I think our EA, as far as the senior levels of management go, it's not quite high up on the priority list, so we're standing by on that one.
Okay, next question. Are there any plans in place to do long overdue maintenance?
Well, look, Qantas are carrying on average about 30 defects per aircraft, so we will certainly be encouraging them. I don't know what the level of defects being carried on Jetstar aircraft are. Virgin have already spoke to me about trying to wrap up work and get the aircraft ready for when the downturn reverses. But I don't think, if Qantas grounded every plane today, I think it would take them a month before they even had the aircraft in tip-top shape again. So certainly doing work on aircraft is going to be the first thing that we're pressing before any consideration of forced paid leave, and even beyond that, which would be worse, would be unpaid leave.
I've just got a question here from Heidi, so I'll address that one. So I think
that'd be Pete Collins.
it's another question that's on everyone's lips is around redundancies. Obviously, it was front and centre prior to the coronavirus with the retirement of the 747s. Figures were never locked in stone, but it was pretty sure that there was at least quite a significant number going to be let go from the Sydney region. All that at the moment, as far as we know, is being put on hold. They don't have, obviously they need a big pot of money to pay up those redundancies. And at this point in time, we're pretty sure that Qantas won't be spending that pot of money on redundancies.
But if they've got the pot already put aside and they decide to retire the 74s before the aircraft are up and flying again, wouldn't there not be a chance for them to have some redundancies before too long?
Look, I don't control the purse strings, mate.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, I can't see it happening anytime soon.
So here's another general question. Can we get CASA to extend the deadline for responses to the Part 66 changes?
Not up on our priorities at the moment. And let's just look at that question a bit further. Do we want to hold off the changes to Part 66? People will have positive and negative views of that, but at the end of the day, I think the question is based around, well, look, someone might be sick with coronavirus. Can we hold off on submissions? Well, people get sick every day, and we don't normally get CASA to delay something, but it might be that CASA shuts its offices down before too long, so they may make the decision themselves. But certainly, we're going to be too busy to try and chase up with them to postpone submissions.
Okay, the next one's specific to the virus. It says we need to have a policy for engineering/cleaners to attend the aircraft once all crew and all passengers are off. Reduces the chances of person-to-person contact.
Yeah, I'll take that one, Steve. Look, I think it's just common sense that you don't want to be associated with passengers. And I don't think that too many management people out there would be opposed to that one. I would encourage, for those of you who don't have any policies in place in your workplace, utilise your workplace health and safety committees to get, you can have an emergency meeting if need be to put some sort of policies in place. There is a lot of good information on government and medical websites to processes that you can employ to best defend yourself against this virus.
And what about the use of gloves, mate?
Yeah, well, here at the ALAEA, we're pretty adamant that if you're on board an aircraft, you should be using gloves whilst you're on there all the time. Take them off when you leave, sure, but at all times we're suggesting that you wear gloves.
And that's because when you're wearing gloves, you're going to be less likely to touch your face.
Correct, yeah.
Something that we know because we...
Yeah. Look, the Qantas medical advice was that you should be just washing your hands and gloves weren't so important, but I highlighted the fact that we wear gloves for protection against chemicals, oils and whatnot. So we're not likely to be putting gloves near our face when we have them on.
So we just had a question from Richard Priestley. A lot of these questions aren't really relating to how we keep the airlines ticking along. We are likely looking down, the barrel of job losses. Is this likely or not? Well, do you want to talk about your views to that?
Look, I don't think so at this point in time. I think Steve and I are pretty aligned. We think that using the leave burn policies that we've been talking about, that's going to buy us a fair bit of time. And by all accounts, if you look at the statistics and the data of countries that have been proactive in this space, like China, has only had 21 new cases yesterday. So it would appear that countries that have been taking proactive measures are seeing an improvement. So we would hope that the Australian government is as proactive in that space, and we would see a flatlining of new cases and certainly deaths. And we would like, obviously, it'd be good if we could see the economy back up and running before too long. So in that time, we would expect that we would get some time to work on these aeroplanes, and some people will have some time at home as well, no doubt.
All right, so this question's come out from a Virgin member though, mate. So I think a lot of people at Virgin may view the world a little bit differently to those at Qantas. And Virgin's share price is down in the gutter, but bear in mind, a lot of the ownership of Virgin is not on the open stock market, so that's not really a problem. The state of the financial balance sheets of the two main airline groups at the moment is Virgin have been saying that they've got $1 billion in cash. Qantas are saying 1.9 billion. On those levels, it looks like actually Virgin would have more cash per head of employee. Virgin would have more than Qantas. But the Virgin blokes are really worried about the jobs. A lot of them come through the Ansett collapse. And I had some emails and chats with our reps at Virgin the last few days, and already there's been consideration that maybe the Virgin blokes should put off their next 2% pay rise. And I sort of relate the question that has been floating around, we put off our pay rise. I relate that to an analogy of a group of airline employees saying, oh, let's try and save the airline by telling them that we don't need as much milk for our cups of tea in the morning. 2% is not going to be anything more than a drop in the ocean to keeping these airlines running. The principles that we're going to apply to Virgin, to Rex, to Qantas, everywhere is going to be the same, is work on aircraft first, take paid leave second, and if you exhaust those options, then we start considering leave without pay options. We'll be on the front foot and ready to talk about these things, Richard, because we don't want any of the airlines to collapse, but I think we're a fair way off a point where we would have to consider taking unpaid leave, and if we did, it would probably be implemented in stages such as everyone takes 1 day off a fortnight, then it might be 1 day off a week, but I think we're a fair way off that at the moment. You got a question there, Gandy?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions have come through. One guy's returned from duty travel and he's been asked to take sick leave for his isolation period.
Well, that's a good sign, because that's the unanswered question. If you don't have the illness, you aren't technically sick, your EBA wouldn't cover leave. If he's been asked by management to take sick leave, that's a step further forward than what could be, which would be unpaid or further annual leave.
So there's another question here which sort of goes over what we were talking about before with the leave burn program. Will all leave be considered in the leave burn program, or only annual leave and deals, etc.? So in other words, will people be forced to take long service leave? I think that's what he's asking.
Well, that'll be different for each airline, but our stepped process will be maintenance work first, paid leave, and when we say paid leave, annual leave, RDOs first, then long service leave, then unpaid leave. They're the steps that we would look at implementing if we were in discussions with any of the airlines.
Okay, there's another question here. Is taking leave going to help when they're trying to save cash? So I can answer that one. The annual leave provisions and long service leave provisions are held in a separate fund.
Correct.
And it'll be drawn down on that fund, not out of their operating account. So yes, it will save cash.
Beautiful.
Reduce their overheads.
Another question here. What was the survey result for the Qantas EA?
No, we don't. We're not going to tell anyone that, because it'll go straight back to management.
No, yeah, that's.
Hello to Alan Joyce, by the way, who's probably watching this. No, we're not going to release the result of the survey. And for those people who didn't get a link to the survey, very occasionally, SurveyMonkey, I believe the server's located in South Africa. Occasionally, it won't send an email to anyone, but we've already used the result that we had in discussions with Qantas on Monday. They haven't made us any offer. We know what to do if they do make us an offer. But we did relay to them that they should really tidy up the EBA if they're going to want favours from us if this coronavirus things gets too bad.
Yeah, I just on that, it's like we don't want to explain how many people voted for what percentage on that. I guess the Qantas guys will only have received this email, but we put an email out on a Survey Monkey out on how many people and what. Sorry,
Just trying to keep up with the questions.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not disclosing that info. It's like you don't play poker with an open hand. But Steve asked me what percentage I thought were going to vote for the thing, and both of us within 1%. So I think we know our workplace.
Yeah, we both picked a figure, and the actual results were within 1%. So that was very good. Look, just some more questions here about: do you think Qantas CEO board practice of buying back shares to artificially inflate share prices, thus increasing their, and then we can't read any further, but increasing
their bonus? I'll finish it off there. Thus, increasing their bonuses has compromised the company's position.
I don't know when the latest share buyback was. There was one announced at the half year. I don't know if they bought the shares or not, but company share buybacks are always used to inflate the share price. But if they've been trying to inflate the share price, it's gone from near on $7.50 to $2.50 when I last looked. So that hasn't worked. But the money that they put aside for share buybacks, well, before coronavirus, should have been spent on new aircraft, and now it should be spent on repairing their planes. But yeah, we disagree with share buybacks. And Steve told us what assistance, if any, the federal government providing. Well, there's the $715 million package that isn't directly been allocated to save jobs, but it's been allocated to relieve the financial strain on all airlines that pay taxes and fees within Australia. All right, what else?
Okay, there's another question there. Yeah, can we take annual leave at half pay?
Annual leave at half pay. You've been involved in a lot of these clauses in the EBA. You could buy back leave. And
You can purchase leave.
You can
purchase leave. We can talk to the company about opening up that program. It's only open once a year.
Yeah.
That program, but it's long service leave that you can take at half pay, not annual leave.
But you can effectively do it at Qantas anyway with leave buyback, and look, I was asked about Virgin. You know, if we got to a situation at Virgin where people like if this went on for 6 months and there was no work and they had to have leave without pay, how would they legally do that? I don't know how they would legally enforce it, but I think our members would, as one, realise that your options are take some leave without pay, or you're not going to have an airline, and you could manage a situation where you could have one block on or one block off. But I really don't think we're going to get to that.
The important thing, if anyone considering taking leave without pay, if it's less than 1 month, it doesn't impact on any of your years of service or superannuation entitlements.
Well, I know the Flight Attendants Association have been looking at having some of those rules changed in relation to this. So if at the moment you take more than a month and they're going to say your starting date changes for purposes of staff travel and the like, we should be entering some discussions with all airlines about relaxing some of the conditions that are attached to leave without pay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. What is our position if the company intends to implement 8-hour shift rosters?
The company can do that. Qantas can. Virgin can't. The default rosters at Virgin are locked in at the EBA to the roster individuals working at the start of the agreement, which is generally 11-hour shifts.
And Jetstar is the same. Jetstar is the same.
Jetstar locked into the extended hours rosters, aren't they? Or
Yeah.
Yep.
It's locked in. Yeah, it's part of the salary. Okay, if it gets to leave without pay, will QF be more likely to reward us when times are better? No.
Qantas are run by some people who I don't feel have the best interests of any of their employees at heart at any time of the day or any day of the year. I think Qantas will continue to be absolute mongrels as we continue to deal with them through this. They're different than Virgin. Virgin we get along well with, and it's not it's not because we're different people. We're the same people. We're the common denominator. Qantas are not good to deal with. And just a quick question from Austin about did we get a significant number of responses? How many did we get, mate?
742.
742 out of 1,100. So yes, we got a significant response to the survey
Within
for the Qantas
within
PDA.
24 hours. And the percentage didn't change. So if you didn't get to vote on that EA, the first 100, the percentages didn't change to the last 700. It was within 1%.
All right, Mark, has you got more questions on
Yeah,
your
there's
list?
one more just come through. If we decide to assist companies for the greater good, can we safeguard these moves so that these moves don't set a precedence for the future? Negotiations offered to us if we survive through this perfect storm.
Yeah, anything that we agree to would be offered on a without prejudice basis, which means you don't set a precedent. That's the questions on your list, is it, mate?
That's it. Yeah.
Let's have a look what's just come up on the questioning here. Dan, 715 million in operating cost reductions, I believe, backdated to Feb 20. This being fuel tax, airport landing tax. Yes, that's correct. That's what the package is going to be. What would your position be if the company wanted to instigate 8-hour shifts? We've already got to. I think we've just about got to the end of the current questions.
Okay, there's one more. One's just come in. Just thinking of times past, example, post 9/11, SARS, etc. Can we learn anything post that? Is there anything we can do now to better prepare ourselves?
I think we're doing all we can. Look, Steve's comments before about senior people in Qantas looking after their own interests. I think through this, I've been in close communication with Chris Snook from Qantas. We do have a good relationship with Chris, and I think it's going to be essential that we maintain that relationship to get through this. I think Steve was referring to people above Chris.
And the IR, HR people.
Yeah. So, I think one would like to think that we're best positioned to get through this with a constructive relationship there.
Wesley, sorry if I missed it. If you are directed to take sick leave by the company, is your sick leave with or without penalties? Without, mate. It's without penalty sick leave. All right, no other questions on the list there?
No.
Okay, well, if we start looking at wrapping this up, and if I could just finish with a final message on this whole saga. It's obviously playing out by the hour. We can't make assumptions about anything that is or isn't going to happen, but we can prepare for all scenarios. And just on that last question about SARS, what can we learn from that? What can we learn about 9/11? I think this is more serious than those situations, because after 9/11 we were back up and running within a few weeks. SARS ultimately had 8,000 people go sick around the globe. We're now up to nearly 200,000 with this one. But I just wanted to leave everyone with a little bit of a message of hope, and I won't refer to my phone, I'll just refer to my memory when I talk about this. I think the virus itself is starting to plateau. If you have a look at, and I've been following the graphs every day, the Chinese numbers are now down to bugger all people being infected on each new day, and I think they've learnt through having self-isolation and how to keep everyone separated. The next couple of countries that really took off were Italy and Iran, and both at Italy and Iran, they've got everyone locked away, and the numbers are starting to ever so slightly reduce from their peaks. There's other countries that appear to have hit their peak, and then there's places like the USA and the UK that are still on the increase, and maybe Australia are too. But it doesn't appear like this virus is going to last forever. It appears like it's about a 3-month period where things are going to be quite bad. And if it's only 3 months that it comes and goes in this country, I think it's not going to lead to anyone losing their jobs at all. We'll just end up with a whole bunch of aircraft that are pretty clear of defects, and they'll start flying again. people will be itching for a bloody holiday once they want to get out of their house, and I don't think that this is going to be the end of our industry. So that's about it from me. And Rod, do you want to?
It's not often you leave on a positive note, Steve.
It's probably the first time ever.
Look, these times of uncertainty certainly do create a lot of anxiety and stress for our members. I just want to reach out to anyone that if they're going through a tough time, whether it be financially, emotionally, feel free to reach out to your ALAEA rep, even myself or Steve. Our numbers are available on the website. We're here to help you. And conversely, we're only a small association. We are under a lot of stress with all the work that's going on here at the moment. So please don't come to us with what ifs and rumours in innuendo. We don't really have time to deal with that. But I would like to reiterate that we do welcome anyone to reach out to for any help that they may need.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks Mr. Spectacular Beard for joining me, and the even more spectacular one that we wouldn't really let on the camera. All right, catch you later, everyone, and this will be up for a while, and you'll be able to view it if you didn't see it all live. Ciao.